Hey everybody, it's Father Sean for another episode of The Couch Chat. And as has happened before, sans the glasses, without the glasses, because the light is just coming in just the right way that it's reflecting off my glasses. Like you can even see like there's some dots on me from the way the sun's coming through, like the window blinds. So it's just the way it goes, you know. And, believe it or not, I actually had a couch chat recorded before Easter for this. I was planning ahead so that, I could take a little time after Easter to not remember things because forgetful every now and then. But anyways, neither here nor there. But it seemed like it was actually probably a good opportunity to record a fresh couch chat. So this is being recorded the morning of Wednesday, the 23rd. And of course, the big reason for doing that is the news that we all heard Monday morning of the passing of our Holy Father, Pope Francis. I know it probably came for me as a little bit of a shock, just because I had seen the pictures on Wednesday, or I've seen the pictures on Sunday, Easter Sunday, of him greeting pilgrims. He was out about in the sun. He met our Vice President, J.D. Vance, and then the news was seemingly he was, doing as well as he could be hoped after he spent, 5 long weeks in the hospital. But sometimes this is the way those things go, where people kind of rally a little bit after a long period in the hospital, and then they go on to their eternal reward. So that is where we are today. And so we extend our prayers for Pope Francis, that the Lord may gather him to himself, that the Lord may welcome him into the Father's house after a lot of years, a lot of decades of service towards the Lord and to his people. And there'll be plenty of opportunity to share memories, to reflect on his life. There's already who knows how many countless things that you could read, that you could watch online already. So, and even in this upcoming week's bulletin, I've got a couple things that have struck me about Pope Francis's papacy and takeaways that I've had, and just kind of what he's meant to us as a Holy Father. So I know sometimes people ask, well, what's next? Well, really the first order of business is the funeral, right? So it's been scheduled that on this upcoming Saturday will be Pope Francis's funeral there in St. Peter's Square, and that'll take place at 10 a.m. Rome time, which I believe is 4 a.m. our time. You could probably wake up and watch it. I know I plan to do that. And so the funeral will be then. And then the last numerous popes have been buried in St. Peter's Basilica. Pope Francis has requested not to do that. He actually wants to be buried in a different basilica in Rome. There's 4 major basilicas, St. Peter's being one of them and the biggest. But the one that Pope Francis visited all the time, over 100 times as a pope, is the one dedicated to the Blessed Virgin Mary, St. Mary Major. So Pope Francis would visit there often before he went on an international trip and after he returned. So just a place that had always held a special place in his heart. So he asked to be buried there, and even gave the specific location of where he wanted to be buried, and then he'd already worked out with the person in charge. So that's what will happen after his funeral on Monday or Saturday. So once the Pope is buried, then we kind of transition into Conclave. And I haven't heard exactly when the Conclave is going to begin. Maybe I just haven't seen it this morning. But there will be some days of prayer for the cardinals. So the cardinals are those who will help elect the Pope, and who will elect the Pope, with the guidance of the Holy Spirit, of course. So the cardinals will gather. They'll have some meetings. They'll have meetings about, what's the state of the church? What are blessings that are happening? What are things that we really need to address, the next pope needs to address? And then kind of comes the prayer. Okay, so who's the one, right? Who's the one that the Lord is calling upon us to elect to be the pope? And so then at some point they'll enter into conclave. Conclave means it's Latin with a key. So basically they are locked in to the Sistine Chapel and the place where they live, cut off from the world, from outside influence, to elect the next pope. Whoever is elected accepts that. He'll be introduced on the balcony there at St. Peter's Square, and then a few days later be installed as the pope. But he becomes the pope the minute he says yes. The minute he gets enough votes and whoever's in charge asks him, do you accept the role as the Pope. As soon as he says yes, he is the Pope. So, a lot to pray for, a lot to think about, a lot to reflect upon, a lot to stay up to date about. And I'm not going to say that we're going to do the best through the couch chat to keep people up to date. There's plenty of resources. I'm just going to give a little free airtime. I'm a subscriber to The Pillar. The Pillar is a Catholic news outlet, and I think they just do a great job of giving the news, sharing it. The guys are super smart and well educated, so they actually know the details, actually trained in the law of the church, so they know what's going on and how things work. So I recommend that. That's where I'll be following, and we'll do our best to have some little commentary here and there, and maybe in the bulletin or at Mass, that sort of thing. So of course, that's not the only thing happening, because we're in the octave of Easter. We celebrate Easter for 8 days, from Easter Sunday until the following Sunday. So we're in Easter mode right now, sort of fitting that we're doing all of this with Pope Francis and praying for him, but also recounting the fact that Jesus rose from the dead, that death has lost his sting and he's opened the gates of paradise. So what a great time for us to celebrate Jesus' victory over sin and death. And ultimately that ends on the octave of Easter, which is this upcoming Sunday, which for the last 25 years or so has had the name Divine Mercy Sunday. A Sunday when we particularly look towards God's mercy. And in that gospel every year we celebrate we read about Jesus' encounter with the apostles in the upper room, how he breathes on the apostles, the Holy Spirit, and gives them the power to forgive sins. So it's a great day of mercy, a day where we celebrate God's mercy. And so at 3 p.m. we'll have our Divine Mercy celebration at Immaculate Conception in Bakins. There'll be a gospel, there'll be a time to pray the chaplet of Divine Mercy to invoke God's mercy upon our parish. Also, there'll be an opportunity to go to confession. 8 days or eight days before, 8 days after, so we're already in that window, is an invitation to go to confession to receive the indulgence of Divine Mercy. You've got to pray for the intentions of the Holy Father, which the intentions of Pope Francis, which were already stated for the month of April, was for a better use of social communications. So pray for that. Receive Holy Communion on Divine Mercy Sunday, and then, of course, to have as good a detachment from sin as possible. So that's an invitation to Divine Mercy. Father Hoyne and I will both be hearing confessions during the service at 3 o'clock. There could be some lines, so feel free to come to confession, this week. We've added all these extra times for the Jubilee year, or you could come next week also. So, invitation to confession to celebrate this great feast of Divine Mercy. So that's it for this week, this octave of Easter with all sorts of news, all sorts of excitement, and a lot to pray for, a lot to be grateful for. So to thank God for Pope Francis' ministry, and also to ask the Lord to grant his mercy to Pope Francis and to the entire world. All right, we'll see you next week on the Couch Chat. Take care, God bless, and happy Easter. Bye.